the more you are around successful people, their successes rub off on you. It's really empowering and uplifting to be around people that are living and breathing your dream. And most of the time, they're willing to help you get there.
Today, I have the leader of the newly formed Hanson Group. After spending over a decade in travel, then mortgage and insurance, she finally made the move up to become a real estate agent in 2019. We will dig deep into her career progression and see what she took from her previous life to real estate and has made her a success in such a short time. So let's welcome Susan Hanson with Eagles World Realty to the show.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I am so glad recommended I look into you because you actually in my technology, I can look up real estate agents' numbers as well as loan officers' numbers. Mm-hmm. You have I guess more of your birth name.
Yes.
In there. You want to explain that to us?
Yes. Well, I was born in Vietnam, and my Vietnamese name is Loan, which is spelled Loan. So part of my career as a mortgage broker, it was a great promotional piece.
I thought about that. I thought that same thought too. I was like, she used to do mortgages and her first name was Loan.
Yeah. Loans with Loan.
Oh, that's great. So you it's just chose Susan because it was just a little more from Americanized way of.
Actually, my father used to call me Susie Q. And so that stuck. And coming to America and having to get used to the culture and everything, it was just easier to have an American name.
Cool. All right. Well, you kind of let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. You were born in Vietnam. When did you come to the States?
We actually left Vietnam the fall of Saigon.
Okay.
My dad was in the Army Corps of Engineers there, and he was able to get us on a helicopter and get us out that day. And we moved to Minot, North Dakota.
Interesting.
So my poor mom, from Vietnam, tropical, hot rainforest to frozen tundra.
Yeah. Is that where your dad was from?
My dad was from Saskatchewan. Originally, his family was from Saskatchewan. They migrated to Minot, North Dakota.
Interesting. And that day, I'm my previous life, I was an education major and social studies, but social studies is a lot in history. And I always remember, spending a good bit of time actually in high school. I had a teacher who was studying the Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. That time period, like you're talking about, when the fall of Saigon's coming and they're pulling out and the ships are offshore and they're literally dumping helicopters and planes into the water so they could take on more people,
right,
to make room. It was, I imagine a very interesting time, if you could say, for lack of better words, for your parents coming out, because you were born in Vietnam.
Yes.
Okay, so how old are you at that time?
I was about 2.5.
Oh, okay.
So I was just a baby, but I didn't realize everything that my parents went through until much later in life.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you grow up in the Dakotas, or how long you stay there?
I was about 11 years old when my mother decided that enough was enough. And she said, we're moving to Florida and you don't have any say about it. So my dad brought us to Florida and we settled in Ocala, actually, in 1983.
All right. Now, I did not see on your resume any college or anything listed. Did you go to any formal schooling after high school, or what you?
I did. I dabbled a little bit in college. I went to FCCJ for a little while, but I was not a great student, I guess. I decided early on that, I really wanted a career, so I went to a vocational school for travel. At the time, travel was, still heavy on the travel agents.
Internet's not involved
yet. So I went to a travel school here in Jacksonville and graduated from that and went straight to work for a worldwide company, Go Worldwide Vacations, which is a wholesale company.
Yeah.
And so I sold to travel agents.
I'm very familiar. In another previous life, I did my year of teaching. My mom was a travel agent when I was growing up. She had a small travel agency. And so I know of Go from that. And then even when I did a little brief stint as working part-time to supplement my income as a travel agent with Dillard's at the time.
Okay, yeah.
Go was still there. And you could go on. For those of you don't know, they had these Go type companies that would put the packages together, and the travel agents could basically plug into those packages and sell those packages To the traveler. Yeah. So you were there for a good bit of time, 12 and a half years. What kind of, corporate training they do? Because I imagine a lot of your stuff is done over the phone.
Right. Everything was over the phone.
Travel agents calling you, asking questions,
Mhm.
how to deal with them. And then of course, obviously you trying to encourage them to encourage their buyer
Right.
to buy.
Packaging deals and things like that.
Yeah. What kind of training did they put you through? Did they have a corporate training program that
Yeah, they did. They would bring us up to New Jersey every once in a while and do some corporate training, but really it was just hands-on mostly. I started off doing the paperwork and just kind of learning the systems. We worked on American Airline systems called Sabre,
okay.
and you go through and you're learning all the little shorthand code to book airline flights and hotels and things like that.
I don't think people, if you've never been in the travel agency, I mean, when do you think they probably got rid of those codes to where it was just click, click? Because I imagine today, if anyone's a travel agency, it's more like they're online.
Hmm.
But going in and saying, yeah, I want to travel from here to there, and you're putting in the code and the slashes and the dashes and this and the periods,
I
it
think
was crazy.
Yeah, I think that some travel agents still use those codes.
Uh,
And for me, I had a very good mentor in travel who used to teach me a lot of tricks. So going through and doing, segments, point by point segments, things like that. So I used to be able to package some really good deals
mhm.
and just, searching out, if you remember, the class of seat and all of that stuff for
Uh,
pricing. We could go into a
Well,
whole.
I luckily had I mean, we'll get into mentoring in real estate, but I luckily had the mentor I had, which my mom having been in real estate, so I understood how it worked. But now as I was actually doing it, so I was lucky I had someone who was just knew it like the back of her hand. And if I was working on Sunday, I'm the only one on coverage, and I could call them and they could generally tell me exactly what to do. Not
Right.
log in and see my screen like they would do today,
You're
but
right.
actually go, oh, just do this, this, and that, and it'll print off on the printer. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Because it was interesting. But did working with GoGo though, did you were able to take advantage of some of the travel incentives? Because
Oh, yeah.
back during that time, they were a little more
That was
travel
back in the
agent
days,
friendly.
yeah, when you used to get complimentary airline tickets and complimentary stays at different resorts just to familiarize yourself with the properties and things like that. So we took advantage of that quite a bit.
Yeah, that was the real great benefit of
Yes.
being in travel and so forth. The brief time I was St. Lucia Chamber of
Mhm.
Commerce had a thing. It was it wasn't even a couple $100. They flew us down there. We spent 4 or 5 days touring all the hotels, eating on them and stuff. It
Yeah,
was
wine
great.
and
Yeah,
dine you
yeah,
all the way, yeah.
yeah.
It was a great part of
Uh,
travel.
since we're on that subject, what was probably one of the most interesting places you went,
Oh, goodness.
or one that you would like to go back to?
One I'd like to go back to would be Costa Rica. I went to Costa Rica back in the 90s, and that was before it really developed and a lot of things have changed there. So I'd really love to go back and, see it before it really gets.
Costa Rica's become a real popular destination.
Yeah.
I mean, I would definitely go there before I would go to Mexico right now.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I think it's definitely come. I know a lot of friends and so forth, and just the different adventures, and we've gotten into diving and so forth. So I definitely would love to do that.
Yeah. It's a
So
beautiful place.
all right. So you're there for about 12 and a half years,
Hmm.
but then you do a little brief stint as a mortgage banker. How did that come about?
So a friend of mine was a realtor and she, kind of smacked me in the back of the head and said, "Hey, you need to go out and you need to buy something. It's time. It's time." So, I found myself a little condo and, worked with a mortgage broker and I really liked the process. It was kind of the first little real estate bug that I got. So the broker that I was working with, she was wanting to bring someone else on, wanting to train somebody, and we just kind of hit it off. And so she was like, "What do you think about doing mortgages?" And I said, I'm ready for a change. I think I'll give it
Mhm.
a try." So I dove into that pretty much head first. Of course, I came in late in 2006. So
Mhm.
2006, 2007, I'm going. I even actually had my own brokerage by that time and the crash happened.
Yes.
And that was very scary for me. It was something that, during that time we were doing a lot of investments too. I had a lot of properties. I had 8 actually.
So you had 8 investment properties of your own at this time.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I started, with my first condo, and then I just kind of started growing from there and bought about 8 properties. And then the market crashed. And when the market crashed, my whole world crashed. My job went away, everything in my pipeline. So I had a brokerage. I had about 8 agents underneath me, brokers, loan officers. They all disappeared, and all of my pipeline disappeared. And so I kind of went into a tailspin actually, and didn't know what to do, like a lot of people at the time. Having that many properties, losing that much equity, losing all my income, it was a really tough time in my life. So a couple months into that, my life partner, Devin, he kind of pushed me to get up and face world again, because it took me a little while.
Yeah.
But we basically kind of just systematically worked through everything that we had. I was introduced to mortgage modification at that time, short sales, foreclosures, things like that. We went to a bankruptcy attorney and talked to them. They said, yeah, you can go bankruptcy, but you have to give up all your assets. And we were just not willing to do that. So we fought for several years. I think the last casualty in that situation was in 2013. So we modified, we settled, we did all kinds of things with the banks, and we were able to save 7 of the homes. I did lose 1 to foreclosure. Wells Fargo was a really tough cookie. They didn't want to work with me, so I lost 1. But 1 out of 8, I feel like, I won. And to this day, we still have 6 of those properties.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's an experience in itself. And talking about real estate, and now you are an agent, and you're talking to people who I think right now, and if you want to buy, and if you're in a position to buy investment property, I think here in Northeast Florida, in my opinion, this is the time. I mean, we have such a demand for good rental property. I mean, we demand for housing in general,
Right.
but there are some people who are not in a position to buy. And if you're able to purchase an investment property, you should have a renter in there pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
At top dollar.
Right.
And continuing to go up, because we're getting calls from the renters trying to get out of that situation so they can lock in a 30-year mortgage or something, because their rents are going up. Again, it's just a supply and demand. How do you, when you're, now you had that experience early. Now, when you're working with those customers, knowing what you've gone through, you've had multiple investment properties for 15 years or so. I mean, does that give you the comments? Do other agents, pick your brain as well? I mean, so, do you, because I think a lot of agents, I'm asking this question because a lot of agents, when someone says they want investment property, they kind of get a little nervous, not sure what to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't sugarcoat anything. Investing in real estate is not for the faint of heart, but there is a lot of opportunity out there. And I truly believe in real estate is one of your best investments. I've gone through working with financial advisors and looking at stock market, things like that. I'm not a big fan of the stock market, but I do love real estate. Again, having going through the crash and having so many assets that were in trouble at the time, fast forwarding, 17 years later, we still have some of those assets, and they have been performing for us all this time. So I could have lost everything. In fact, I lost a lot of equity. However, I had these tangible assets that I was able to help people, put people into my homes, and maintain the payments and maintain my assets with still having income coming in.
Right. They're paying the mortgage all this time, and now what those homes are valued at now. We had obviously some exaggerated pricing in 2006. But if you've had a home even since 2006 and overpaid it, you went negative, probably well into the teens. But here recently, you're now, based on what you paid for it, have equity. But all that time, someone's been for 12, 13, 14 years now, someone's been paying that mortgage.
Somebody's been paying that mortgage.
Yes. Yeah.
So even if we were breaking even, I mean, we did go through some rough spells, obviously, the 08 all the way to 2010. But, we felt like even if we were breaking even on our mortgage payments and our maintenance payments, we were winning because our mortgages were getting paid down and our equity was going back up. I think it took about 10 years to get back to where we were from the crash, from, the absolute crash to building equity again.
Right. Do you feel, I think people are too short-sighted on investment properties. Now, there's certain situations where it's like, hey, I can get a really good deal. I can go in there and renovate it and flip it for quick cash. But if you're in for the long game, even right now with the interest rates up, maybe you are paying a little bit higher. but I don't see housing because such a demand. Housing is not just going to, collapse like it did in 2008. The demand's still too high, especially here where
Hmm.
we're at. But they don't, not many see the longevity of it. And if you look back into those late, 2008 to 2010, what was your mindset? I mean, were you thinking long haul? Were you already thinking about today?
Yes and no. I guess in the beginning it was, we were thinking about mainly fixing and flipping. We had a couple properties that we did fix. We didn't get to the flip part, but we ended up holding those properties for the long term. And today I'm glad that we did. But that's the one thing. And I tell my investors, you really have to consider like your risk tolerance, and then also what is the worst case scenario. So if you're buying a home to flip, if you can't sell it, what can you do, and what you can rent it, and what can you rent it for, and is that going to cover your costs
Right.
and even make you some positive cash flow. I think it's prudent to be careful, but I also think that the opportunity is out there, and if you don't grab it, 10 years down the road, you're going to be looking at it and wondering why you didn't grab it.
So, for those listening out there, those who may be listening in the future, advertise yourself a little bit. Explain your experience, because like I said, I mentioned earlier, a lot of agents, someone says they want to buy an investment property. They don't own an investment property themselves. They haven't really sold investment properties before. They're not sure how to do it, but where a client needs to look for someone like you, who not only has your own properties, you've been doing it for a while, and actually has a little nose to what's out there and what to actually look for to make a good investment property.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm missing
What's your
the question.
expertise? Tell me how your experience is a benefit for clients out there. Explain to them why your experience, it makes you valuable, especially for an investment property buyer.
Well, I think because I have gone through so much. I mean, I have from the bottom to the top to the bottom to the top. So I've been through it all. I've been through, the insurance portions of it, the financial aspect of it, the gains, the losses, the mechanics of it all. I really have a well-rounded view of real estate investment.
Now, so here's we were talking about, don't ask me what the interest rate is, or those
Right.
those questions, right? Because really no one else knows to ask. But generally, the first thing someone wants to do, or the first thing their friends and family who don't own investment properties are saying, "Oh, well, you're going to get a call in the middle of the night to go fix the toilet and all this other stuff." Which is part of owning any investment. So whether you have a management company or you selected to do it yourself, I mean, that's just owning an investment.
Right.
That's part of the cost, the fees you pay, so to speak, versus just putting it, say, in a 401k. There's fees being taken off of there. You don't even know they're going, who's getting them or for what. At least in investment property, when to fix the toilet,
Right.
or replace the hot water heater, or those types of things. So in your experience, and with 6 properties, as many as 8 at one time, what has been your experience over the last 15 years in working with that many properties?
Well, I can tell you that in 17 years, I've been called in the middle of the night one time. And it was because a female tenant of ours who lived alone, there was a break-in. She called us in the middle of the night. We drove down there. The police came. We had to secure her door and set her up, for the evening. But that's the only time I've been called in the middle of the night for things.
Right.
Now, what I've learned throughout the years is you gather your people, right? So you have your good maintenance people, you have your AC people, your electricians, your plumbers, all of those things. And those relationships are very important, not only in the real estate world, but as an investor that, you can call somebody and they're there for you. We don't use a management company. My partner manages all of our homes. So, and he's pretty handy himself. So usually everything gets taken care of by him. But in the big picture, I mean, the maintenance part of the houses is really not that bad. As long as you are on top of things and you keep up you don't let a lot of deferred maintenance happen.
Well, that's a good point, the deferred maintenance. But even, would you say, based on your experience, and I know you've probably have had many different renters in those units over the years, that if you're properly select the right renter, do the proper due diligence on them, a lot of the renters will just take care of a lot of the minor issues themselves?
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. It's very important that you are able to select your tenants properly. I mean, there are some cases where, you might be a little bit desperate to get somebody in there, but really the patience pays off, and, you really want to vet your people.
Can you give us a tip or two on some of the things that when you're vetting that you're, looking for or found that, the characteristics of this person is similar to others is successful?
Sure. First off, you want to, I mean, appearance is everything, right? So
Mm.
you're looking at the vehicles. Are they clean?
They take care of their
They
own
take
stuff.
care of their own things. I mean, really, if it's pride in themselves, you want to see the pride in themselves first. We really are not credit heavy as far as renters, and that is something that I know you work with a lot in your business,
Yeah.
where you have people that are challenged with credit. It doesn't mean that they're bad people. It just means that something happened along the way that has stopped them from moving forward. And
Mhm.
so, that credit worthiness is important. However, sometimes it's just, especially with renters, a lot of times they're renting because their credit isn't up to par, and they would
Right.
want to buy, but they can't. So we don't really look at credit. We will look at the credit report, but we allow them to explain the circumstances and then overall big picture, right? And then
Right.
we look at references and previous landlord referrals
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well.
I think it definitely makes life easier. It's not 100%, but occasionally things happen, but that's why the upswing in rental investment property can be so good too. You just lessen your blow by investing your investment in the right
And the right
areas.
people,
Yeah.
yeah. And sometimes,
Mm.
I mean, in my business too, I'm prepping my renters to buy.
Exactly. I mean, how many of over the years have you been able to turn obviously some of them to
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
to customers,
Yes.
and they probably become lifelong customers at
Yes.
that if they obviously went to that. I think that's something that agents have brought up more recently. I know my wife, she's done it very successfully, to not shy away from taking on some of those rental clients because you're just planting a future seed
Absolutely.
for that. And if you're not taking rentals because, I want to get paid whatever. Okay, well, maybe it pays for your gas that month, but you also now have a customer that has worked with you
Yeah.
and hopefully appreciated you.
Yeah. And listen, I have been in that situation myself, going through the crash, my credit went in the tank for years.
Yeah.
And, thank God I had my home to live in and I wasn't looking for a rental, but, good people have problems and
Stuff happens.
stuff happens.
Yep.
So,
All right. So you go from mortgage broker. You did spend some time in insurance there, but what ends up leading you to make the jump into the real estate agent sector of all these are support mechanisms of the business,
Right,
right?
right.
You weren't a home inspector though.
No, I didn't do that.
Although you
Although
want,
I probably could.
yeah, exactly.
No, so okay, so just real quick,
Hmm.
crash happened. I'm on the floor trying to pick myself up. I have a really good friend who owned a St. John's Insurance in
Hmm.
Ponte Vedra. He, reached out and gave me an olive branch and said, "Hey, come work with me. I know you need some help. You need,
Hmm.
consistent income."
Right.
So I started working with him and, climbed my way up that little ladder too. I got my customer service license and then my 220 insurance license for property and casualty. And he was a wonderful mentor to me, still is today,
Hmm.
but he helped me pull myself up, I guess. And I did that for several years, was a top producing agent for him. And then I was recruited into life insurance sales. That was a mistake.
We've all done that.
Yeah.
Not all did life insurance, but we've all made a mistake.
It's real glittery, right? It's real glittery. Now, I believe in life insurance. I think everybody should have some sort of life insurance. There's all kinds of ways to utilize life insurance. I'm just going to say that right there. But I did not enjoy that job. Similar to real estate, you're prospecting a lot, but a lot of people don't want you to sell them life insurance. So that didn't work out so well for me. But I was recruited by a financial advisor in Ponte Vedra, and he asked me if I would come in, look at his and build an insurance division within his advisory firm. And I did that and we were successful for a few years and he decided that he wanted to retire. And when he decided that he wanted to retire, I had to really kind of think about what I was doing and was I really happy in what I was doing and did I want to still follow this path of, life insurance, financial advising. All of this time I've continuously been in real estate in some facet or another. And I just decided, you know what? I'm going to go back into real estate. It's what I really love. I thought about going back to the loan officer realm, but you guys have a lot of stress. So, I
Well, real
remember.
estate agent is not stress less.
No, it's not stress less, but I'll tell you, your good loan officers out there, they are working hard and they are, on the wire for a lot of things being shot at them in every direction. But so, I hadn't done the real estate agent sales. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to get my real estate license and see how it goes.
All right. So you work for a small brokerage
Mm-hmm.
at first, and this is a common, probably every single person I've had on. One of my biggest curiosities is what makes your choice to go there. And I asked premise the question to everyone who listens to my episodes, because I feel if there's a new agent out there listening, or someone who wants to become a real estate agent, or maybe an agent who's at a brokerage that isn't really adding value to them, that the next brokerage, they do a little more due diligence on, who they're actually partnering up with. So you end up spending a few years there, obviously. But was that a selection where you actually studied, or you just, you knew a friend, or, because obviously being in insurance and previous in the mortgage, you were meeting real estate agents all the time.
Yes.
So what led you to your first brokerage?
It was a friend situation. She was doing really well, and I was following her on Facebook. And of course, we'd met through the insurance world. She had a similar background to me, a mortgage broker. So I knew her through the insurance and casualty insurance realm. And so, I saw that she was doing really well, and it kind of inspired me. And it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction to just, hey, I'm going to get my license, let's meet up and talk. And we did. And to be honest, in my mind, I wasn't thinking about interviewing all of these different companies. I just wanted to kind of hit the ground running, and I wanted to be kind of more of a free agent, I guess. I didn't really understand the dynamics of brokerages and, the types of training and the support that they offered. And I wasn't really sure what kind of support I needed as well.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of background that helps me, to where I'm not really reliant on a broker so much.
Right.
So I reached out to her. We connected, and I joined her brokerage. And then I just kind of, put my blinders on and put the feet to the pavement and went a couple years with that. And, you evolve, right? So things just happened, and we kind of evolved out of that. And I was approached by Eagles World Realty, which you've had Ennis on here.
Yeah.
She's a wonderful managing broker for Eagles World. And they just, they offered us a little bit more. They wanted
I'm
to
gonna have you just move just a little bit. I think it's this way. Come towards me a little bit. Just there we go. Good. Perfect. There, now you're center.
They encouraged me to create a team, and that's something I hadn't thought about. For the first 3 years of my career, I was running around crazy, chicken with my head cut off, trying to meet everybody all the time. Funny, I put almost 35,000 miles on my car. And, and it was really tough. But Eagles World kind of encouraged me to do more. And that's what I really liked about them. They have, a pretty robust training system. Their managing brokers are there all the time, and they encourage me to kind of level up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you said a few things there that are that resonate with, I think, with every agent it's out there. And if it's not, it's 99.9 of them not knowing what you needed. When you first started. Obviously you had a lot of, a decade roughly of experience between mortgages and the insurance of dealing with homeowners and understanding the real estate industry, to some extent. And then obviously, your previous decade before that with GoGo, and just understanding, talking with people on the phone. I think that's a trait I tell agents all the time, because I put 12 plus years in the call center in my 17 and a half years, I know that if you're in a house with a client in front of you and they don't have financing, and they're wanting to make an offer, you don't want to let them walk out the door and start thinking about it. You want to, it's time to be a salesperson now. You got to close, right?
Absolutely.
So you take that phone, put them on with me. I've taken it live that was one of my strengths when I was working as the builder's lender with a large builder. The site agents loved it because they're trying to close with people right there in the office with them. And they would call and say, hey, can you speak to so-and-so? And then how to, articulate that, because obviously they ask the general questions of, hey, what's the interest rate? What's the payment? Thinking that's important. Those things are important. But ask those other questions, as you know, as a mortgage, we need to know a little bit more around that thing to make sure it's going to fit. What are your other debts?
Right.
Yeah, you may think you want to make that payment, but you have to have that $800 car payment that, it might affect you from being approved to make that payment,
Right.
like
Right.
same thing. And just being able to work on the fly, so to speak.
Yeah.
And obviously you coming into the industry, you had more experience in the industry from the insurance and mortgage part, where some of our, whether I was just doing some reels on Heather Perez, she came just out of college, so she's never even owned a home at the time. You have other, agents who are out there that were stay-at-home moms, so they maybe, with their spouse and bought a house, but they don't know anything about our industry. You came in with a little bit of knowledge, which obviously think you attribute to your success today, and you're from the standpoint of confidence. Because when you go to those classes now, you're like, yeah, I know that, boom, you're putting it away. But for the standard tip, someone coming into the industry, knowing what you know and the time that you spend in mortgage and in insurance and now in the real estate business, what are some of the things that they need to dig into themselves to learn? Like you said, you didn't know what you needed to know, but now you hopefully do, or somewhat what you need to know. What are some of the things they need to dig in themselves? And then what do they need to be asking that broker when they're interviewing the broker, see if it's a broker match?
Well, I think for new agents, first of all, it's a tough world out there. So, I mean, agents that have no experience in the industry at all, I mean, don't beat yourself up, because there's so much to learn, and every deal is a different deal, and every day there's different challenges. You have to be up for those things. And I think inner asking is, am I ready to put what I need to put into this business to make it work? There's a lot of people that are getting real estate license, and they're not really sure about how the industry works. And, you have this complex, like it's, you open doors and you close a deal, and, everybody else does the work for you. But it's not. It's a very difficult industry to be in. And I guess my biggest advice would be to really dig into how much you're willing to put of yourself into your business, because we are all self-employed. The other day I was thinking about, people that are W-2 employed, they go to, 8 to 5 every day, 8 o'clock to 5 p.m. every day. And I see a lot of new realtors that are coming in, and you're self-employed and you don't have boundaries that, you would have to adhere to. And that's true. But if you're not putting in the hours, you're not going to get out of it what you really need to get out of it to be successful. 9 to 5 job, you work about 40 hours a week. I would say I probably work 70 to 80 hours a week, if not more.
Because we live what we do. You're constantly thinking, how am I better going to position that house? The market's changing. Do I have that house priced right? You're constantly, searching if you got buyers, and what their timeline is, and stressing that they don't just walk into a new construction home and buy it, then tell you later.
And all of those things you have to figure out as a new agent too. You don't know those things coming into the business. So, I mean, I would suggest definitely get yourself a good mentor or a coach for your first several deals until you feel comfortable going out on your own. I think it's very important to do that, and also find a brokerage that's willing to train and learn, read, and learn, do
Constantly.
Take all of the classes that are in MLS that NEFAR gives to us. It's important. Even with the background that I have, I mean, the first year I was constantly attending courses at NEFAR. I was constantly doing courses online. I paid for additional courses, and I listened to podcasts.
Right. Hey folks, this episode was produced by Streamline Media, the #1 media company for helping brands generate content that converts. I knew I wanted to start a podcast to reach more people and bring value to the world, but I did not have the time or the knowledge. Streamline Media became my secret weapon to building my show. They handle all my back-end work, production, and strategies to keep my show going strong. If you're in the real estate business and looking to make content that generates more leads and brings in more revenue, check out the Streamline Media link in the show notes and discover how partnering up can supercharge your path to real estate excellence. You mentioned mentor. So it was interesting, as I go through these videos later, and I'm even going back to stuff I did a year ago, and I'm cutting reels out, of the agents and so forth. And one of them was talking about a mentor and how important it is. Well, so I go and cross reference. It's like, what do I title this video? Because now, you want it to be, get the clicks on social media. And so I started searching on YouTube and, putting mentor. And one of the most popular titles is, how do you find a mentor? That's your question.
Oh boy. I've been very fortunate in my life to have several mentors that have just come into my life, and I attach myself to them, right?
Mhm.
So if I feel that they are giving me value, then I'm all about that. So I haven't actively, gone out myself and just seeked out somebody in particular to mentor me, but I have several mentors within my realm of my sphere,
Are
But
they
I
all other real estate agents or
oh
just other business
no,
people?
business people, my financial advisor, my insurance buddy, and just people in my life that I have come across. I mean, even travel agents that I worked with 30 years ago, I'm still go to them and talk to them about things that,
Hmm.
relate to us. So as far as a mentor when you're seeking out a mentor in real estate, I think that, you really want to focus on where you want to be. What are you looking at for your future, and who aligns with that to you? You know, if you're looking to be an investor heavy realtor, then maybe you're looking for a mentor that is investor heavy. Or if you're looking to be a luxury realtor, you want somebody that's in the luxury realm. Just depends on what you see yourself doing in the next, you know, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, and try to align yourself with somebody that you see that is successful in those things where you want to be.
So it's not necessarily just the best real estate agent in the office. That's not necessarily just because they're number one doesn't make them to be your best mentor
I don't think so.
necessarily. You want to, or do they are they like-minded, are they too structured for you, or maybe being structured is what you need and that you want to be like them. So you want to, how did they do it?
Right.
I think there's so many different ways, but I think whether it's a mentor, and then my next question going to you, your years of you were prospecting as a mortgage loan officer, insurance, you were doing the same thing. You said you were top producer there and grew business, and now you're doing it on your own. What is Susan's niche in the marketing? What is it you like to do? And I ask this because it seems to be a very popular subject. I was listening to Dustin Brome. He's a big EXP agent. I'm going to have him on the show here in a few weeks. He was interviewing somebody, finding what is it that you like to do, and obviously you're good at, and obviously produces results. Are you constantly evolving that? What is your favorite way to market that actually you're seeing the greatest results?
I'm always working on myself. I mean, that's one of the biggest things in prospecting is there's so many different ways to prospect, social butterflies, cold callers, you people that are driving for dollars, that kind of thing. For me, I use a lot of my personal social media to kind of celebrate our wins and really kind of post things personally, not so much business wise. I get a lot of referrals, people that come back to me from years and years and years, because some of my friends, I have 30 plus years, and we don't talk very often, but they see my posts and they say, hey, I remember Susan when she was a travel agent. She worked really hard for me, and I know she'll do the same for you as a realtor. So I guess throughout my life, I've always, for me, is you give to get, right? So you work really hard for people, you help people, even if you don't have a return for that. And I think that for me has come back to me tenfold, especially from the past, And even now, if I'm prospecting, I'm cold calling, even if the people on the other line, they need help, but they're not necessarily going to come to me for any service. I share my knowledge and I share things that may or may not, be beneficial to them. And, I just try to help everybody that I can help, regardless of the return to me. And I don't worry too much about it.
Right,
And
right.
I think it pays off dividends future.
Digging a little bit of the, I guess, is Facebook your primary, your Instagram, or both, or what do you, where's your social media?
Facebook is my primary. I am technically challenged. I do have an assistant that helps with, our business posts and our business pages on Facebook, our business pages on Instagram, that kind of thing. Just myself, I just post on Facebook and it transfers over to Instagram, and that's about the extent of mine.
Right. Okay. So, but interacting with your sphere
Mm-hmm.
so like you said, some of them been on there many years, and I had a agent on. We were talking about that. Oh, it's going to come to me because I've had so many on now. I got to differentiate, but it wasn't that long ago that she. Oh, I know who it was. I know because I was cutting her reels as well. Sarah Schwartz. There it is. I knew it was Sarah. I couldn't get the Schwartz, just wouldn't come out on me. Okay, but she was talking like back when she was in high school and lifeguarded at the amusement park that's going away, Adventure Landing, and how one of her summer teammates or whatever just said, "Hey, yeah, I'm looking to buy a home or whatever." And she was talking about the social media. How important is it to interact though? Not just because if you're not saying anything to them and there's no real interaction, you're not socializing on social media, they may go away. Facebook knows who you're talking to, who you're commenting on, who you're liking, and so forth. So it keeps feeding you those people's posts. We all have hundreds, if not thousands of people in our like, but we don't see everything they post because they don't post that often enough. And when they did, we didn't, maybe we didn't see it, so we didn't make a remark.
Right.
But how important it is to go through and try to say something significant to stay top of mind in that social media Facebook sphere.
It's very important. I think going through your Facebook, I don't stay on your Facebook, 8 hours a day, but if you're checking on your Facebook 2-3 times a day, scrolling through, and, when you see something of interest, you comment on it, give somebody a compliment and make their day, those are some of the things that I do. If I haven't seen anybody post in a while and I see them post, I will definitely comment and tell them what I think about them and how, what they mean to me. I also do some posts myself that, encourage involvement and encourage conversation. I think it's really important.
Well, I've noticed, LinkedIn was doing it for a while. It's, obviously still does it, where someone's job anniversary or something, it'll actually preload, congrats or something, a couple short little phrases in there saying something positive. I've noticed that, and I don't know how long it's been going on. It wasn't always so, but Facebook is doing something similar, giving you a half a dozen options of, hey, congratulations, that looks great. Or, hey,
right,
you're beautiful, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And they're loading that on there to get you to interact.
Yes.
Because most people we're lazy and we're looking at it. Oh, well, okay. We say in our mind, oh, congratulations to them. Well, everyone else is saying it, so I don't need to say it. But now they preloaded those things in there so that you could do that and add a little, 2 or 3 words to it or something. But now you're starting to interact more. And that's what social media, I think Carl Sona, who does with Streamline Podcast, he said, social media is for you to be social.
Yeah.
And that you want to interact, which then benefits, like you say, when you post something, you're now in front of them and you're constantly reminding them that you're in real estate. Yeah. And
that you're there and you're a friend, and you see a lot of people on social media that struggle, and you let them know that hey, I'm your friend, I'm here, and I can help you with things. I think it's very, very important. And like you said, that almost a instant post, it takes you a couple seconds to say congratulations to someone, and it means a lot to people. Otherwise they wouldn't be posting it,
right? Yeah, 100%. They're looking for a reaction, whatever it may be. We can get in the psychology of it, but we've been trained, but we're happy about it, and we want to share that moment with everyone, whatever it is. There's a psychological part of that. What's the biggest mistake you think you've made in real estate?
I'm going to say this, but then I'm going to say it's not a mistake, because
a mistake is an optional word.
Everything happens for a reason in my world. For a long time, I said the biggest mistake I made was when the market crashed. I didn't push forward and continue going.
In the sense of buying more real estate?
Well, in the sense of sticking it out and, trudging through the mud and staying as a mortgage broker, or, changing around that way, or going as a real estate agent, pivoting into some things that I could have pivoted into during that time. But at the end of the day, I think that if I hadn't taken the path that I took, life would be very different right now for us. I think that I stabilized myself and I was able to get a lot more knowledge and that to help me now that I am a real estate agent. And then also, personally, those things had to happen for us to understand and to respect our investments.
I mean, like you said, things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm a big John Maxwell fan. I mean, he has a path for us. And what's sometimes confusing, or what I think the angels laugh at us from the standpoint of when there's certain doors put in front of us, which ones we choose, and whatever that, again, what is the path, and but different opportunities. You had a situation financially and so forth, so you had to make a move, so you chose that instead of sticking with it, which we were before the show. The average podcast is only 4 or 5 episodes. Why? Because people think it's something they want to do, they do it, but then they got to have that long-term vision into it. What do we tell our kids? What we were told by our parents who were, 20 and 30 years before us, all their experience, and we just had to tell them, they don't know what they're talking about. Right?
Right. Exactly.
We go back to that one. So I was mentioning earlier, I was searching for a good title for the YouTube short on this agent who was talking about mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
One of the actual very popular reels that is on there in my niche of, real estate agents talking about and giving out great information and so forth is what working with other agents that are not as, and we don't have to mention any names, but if you were the god of all real estate agents, what are some of the things that when working with some of the agents and now with your experience, your investment experience, your insurance experience, mortgage experience, and you're bringing to the table and you're producing that you run into occasionally with that agent on the other side of this deal that you're like, I wish they did more of something, bring their game up?
Well, I love working with other agents. I mean, most of my experience with other agents has been great, especially the agents that get it, right? We are not against each other. We are a team.
Yep.
We are trying, with our partners, everybody's holding hands and we're trying to make it to the finish line. So that's really great to me. I love working with
agents that have that ideology, that mindset.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even new agents that don't even know what they don't know what they're doing, but they're embracing that, we are here to make it to an end point and we are all working together, not against each other.
Right.
And that's one of the biggest things I think working with agents that might be difficult is that some agents have this stigma that you're on one side and I'm on the other side and, we're not friends. And it's counterproductive to our job. It's counterproductive to giving the buyers and the sellers a great experience. And, most of the things that happen to us throughout our, transaction process can be solved if everybody kind of puts their heads together. New agents, what I really would love to see new agents do is read your contracts. Read your contracts and understand your contracts. And there's a lot of education around the contracts you can go to all around town. I mean, a lot of the brokerages put on classes. It's very important to at least try to understand so you're not misinterpreting some of the things of the contracts, because those are the things where I think most of our problems stem.
It's interesting you say we have top producers, a lot of them that I've had on the show, numerous of them said, you got to take that contract class from multiple different instructors because all of them have their little area that they like and they're going to highlight that, or maybe their stories to put with the contract to make it relevant of why that part of the contract is important. So whenever there's a contract class, whether, it's a formal one at NEFAR or one of the title companies is putting it on, because they're all lawyers and they want to talk contract, to go and sit in on that. And it just resonates with me because last night I was, again, cutting some reels yesterday and the agent was talking about scripts and how important it was. She felt she learned early in a previous career using scripts and how she uses scripts today to like live the script, memorize it, do it enough times to where it's just natural. Right. And I think it's the same thing with the contract. You got to keep going to those educational classes, especially early, and double down on them, make that contract comfortable for you. I think someone said one time it was a class that you could actually turn it and face the client and read it upside down, knowing exactly where it was in the contract of what you're talking about.
Right. Right. It's very important. And I see that a lot, that the newer agents aren't really focused on the contract.
Mhm.
And that's the biggest part of our job is to the contract's there to protect our buyers and the sellers, and we should, seek to understand them. And if we don't understand them, then, look to somebody who can help us.
Mhm. But they don't have to be perfect,
Mm-mm.
but constantly be bringing your level up on every deal and every opportunity you can to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna dig in because I'm gonna look at the time and what questions I have left here of which ones I want to dig into. What do you think are the key traits and qualities necessary to be successful in real estate?
Honesty, integrity, and tenacity.
Tenacity.
Mm.
I assume the other two are I think are obvious. Honesty, honesty, integrity. You're kind of I don't know. You're kind of blending two in there. Is there a difference?
There is.
Um,
Yeah. I'm well. You have to integrity. Do what you say you're going to do, and be where you say you're going to be. And honesty. I don't like to sugarcoat anything. I don't tell my customers that something's happening when it's not happening. Those kinds of things. If something comes up, if you're upfront and honest and you set expectations, your life will be much better, much easier.
If someone comes to you and says, "I got good news or bad news," I got good news and bad news. Which one do you want first? What do you say?
I want the bad news first.
Okay, good answer. You said tenacity,
Mhm.
and I heard recently someone talking about grit, which to me I think is I'll make those words interchangeable. I think, but in the way you do business, what's to express where your tenacity is? If someone doesn't even is listening to this and doesn't know anything about real estate or a possible buyer or seller, and you say tenacity, they may be like, "Well, tenacity is you're just a real estate agent. Why do you need to have tenacity?"
Oh. You need to be I always say like 95% of the time the real estate agent is the driver of the deal, because there are so many things that come up in transactions, and you have to be on the ball as far as solving problems, structuring things, the way that you structure deals and the way that you approach challenges, because every single transaction has challenges. And if you are not a strong-willed person, and you can be taken advantage of, you can be confused a lot. You just need to, push forward and make sure that you're working to make those solutions happen, and not just give up on, the challenge. When the challenge comes up, you need to face it head on, and you need to push forward to make things happen.
So I think you would agree that. So if you're a new agent and you're in those first few deals, and obviously I think, obviously some of the biggest challenges, you can have lending go awry, but you can't really control that part. But obviously I would imagine most of your challenges come with, post home inspection and
Mhm.
dealing with, repair requests and so forth.
Mhm.
If you're a new agent, if I was a new agent, let's say if I'm a new agent in my first few deals, how important is when you get that counter offer from whatever the buyer's agent coming to you and saying, "Hey, we got these repairs. How are we going to deal with them?" Just to not rush, take a few minutes, get with your mentor or a senior agent and say, "What's the best way tactfully to handle this?"
Mhm.
Because I think you're right that you can only start creating more animosity and it could be over the stupidest repair possible.
Right.
I'm sure you've experienced like this is only a few $100. What do you know?
Yeah.
It's not going to cause the house to fall into
Yes.
a hole or something. And to take the time and because nothing happens let's say some things happen overnight and nothing happens like so fast. These things take whether it's 21 days and it's still plenty of time, or it takes 45 days to close the deal for whatever is going on with the buyer and seller and when they're going to close, to take whether it's a few minutes or a couple of hours to regroup and how you're going to respond properly or make a phone call to that other agent. Can you give us an example of how do you handle some of those situations? Which I imagine sometimes something comes across and your blood starts to boil for a minute and you have to settle yourself down to make sure you're going to respond in a effective way, to go back to what you said earlier, that our goal is to get to the finish line, not
Right.
to closing.
Right.
Yeah.
So for an inspection situation, for instance, if you get these inspections, and the home inspectors, they will list every little thing, little piece of peeling paint, or,
Mhm.
the weather stripping's a little bit loose. You can overwhelm your customers by, over dramatizing an inspection report. And typically what I'll do is, the customers will get the inspection report. I let them marinate on it for, overnight, usually, unless we're in a hurry. And then I will go through it line by line by line, and I will pick out, what things seem important to me. And then, if I have any kind of questions, I go to the inspector first and have them explain everything to me. And a lot of times the inspectors will tell you, it's not a very expensive fix, or, it sounds worse than it is. And most of the time things sound worse than they are.
Right.
So then I have knowledge going into the conversation that I'm going to have with my customer. And then I always go through the inspections line by line and make sure that everything that they are concerned about is addressed. And then we go back and we say, okay, what's really important to us, and you have to understand also their needs and their wants, right? The buyer has a tolerance level of this house, and they want this house, and but you don't want them also to overlook something that's very important just because they are so interested in getting the house that they may overlook some major problem, get in the house later, and then have that problem come up. So you want to definitely gain your knowledge up front, have the conversations with the customer, and then, basically
handle it professionally and go after the important things.
Yeah, prioritize your concerns.
Yeah, weather stripping on the bottom of the door, really? I mean,
right.
And understanding, I think it's great because, I had, Kurt Stein with Home Scan on a few weeks ago, and we were talking about home inspections, and the top home inspectors that I've spoken to, I mean, they know this situation, like this conversation you're having, they like to have themselves and say, oh, these are just, we had to mention the weather stripping, but these are a couple dollars over here.
Right.
This is what we need to focus on.
Right.
How, when you're on the buyer side and having the home inspection, at what point do you, sometimes you tell your buyer, there's not enough on here to go back after it. This house is in good shape. I would move forward as is, versus some of them who, I think some agents just say they take that home inspection report and then they just list everything and try to get a few $100 more out of the buyer.
Right.
And it's kind of just wasting a lot of people's time.
Right. Again, that's a conversation. Like, I don't ever make those decisions for my customers. What's important to them is what's important to them. If they want to list it on the repair request, I will do that for them. I do, however, talk to them about, what is the value. So, and it depends on how you've structured the deal, right? So if this seller is giving thousands of dollars in closing cost assistance and thousands of dollars off the purchase price of the home, you don't want to nickel and dime them on weather stripping.
Exactly.
You want to go, because it's a respect thing, right?
Yeah.
So yes, we found these things wrong with the house, but we're getting this out of this deal. And so, we really only want to focus on the main things that are safety and, necessary.
Or could be a catastrophic expense.
Exactly.
Afterwards, that
Right.
type of thing. Yeah. Touch a little bit. You mentioned earlier that you learned when your investment properties that you had, when I asked you about getting called in the middle of the night, that you had your team, so to speak. You had some support vendors, maintenance guys, whatever, that you built a relationship over time. You knew they were reliable, a type of thing. How important is it now, even as a real estate agent, when you're going into a home that may need a couple little things here and there, that you have those guys or girls on speed dial to whether get advice like, hey, what's it going to cost to replace this hot water heater? Or, could this house get, a tankless, or whatever the question might be, but to have those confidants on your team that you can rely on.
Most important in our business as realtors, it is relationship driven, right? You've got relationships not only with your customers, but all your vendors, the people that you work with on day-to-day basis. And you have those people that you can call. I don't know how many times I've been in a house looking at something and my customers have a question, and I can call somebody and I can ask them right away.
Right there on the spot. Yeah.
It gives you confidence because you're able to answer the questions that they're asking, which you may have no idea, but those people. So it looks good when you have those resources like on the spot that you can just
text or give them a quick call and get a quick response.
Yep.
I mean, because how many times you're in a house, you got someone who's interested in it, they see some sort of issue. We don't know if it's big or small, so you want to call that person, but you don't. You let them walk out, and the first thing they do is call the person who has no knowledge on the subject,
100%,
their father-in-law or whatever, and of course tells them, the
roof is going to cave in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And kills the deal when really it was a minor, few $100, no big deal, a repair or something that consistently happens. Here in Florida, we have all these people from up north. Those houses have different issues than the houses down here
Absolutely.
all the time.
Yep.
All right. You're tell us about, you've just formed the Hanson group, right?
hmm
So and then from what I could see on your LinkedIn, was it back in October, November timeframe, you've officially formed the
Yes.
group. So what makes up the group? You have a transaction coordinator and other agents. Where are you at with it today? And then where are you going to take it?
So
You want to take it.
when we joined Eagles World, one of the mentee that I brought with me, a couple of mentees that I brought with me to Eagles World, I really wasn't thinking about starting a team, but Eagles World, the brokers there encouraged me, and to be honest, I was needing the help because I was, like I said, chicken with my head cut off.
Mhm.
So right now it's been a transitionary period. Really didn't know anything about setting up a team, didn't know how to structure a team, didn't know how to share the financials of a team. So most of that last year period has kind of taught me a lot of lessons, but also helped us grow together as a team. And right now we're 3 agents and a part-time assistant. One of my agents is pretty new. She's basically transaction coordinating her own deals right now, just because I feel like it's important to
Been
learn.
below that step.
Yep.
And you know what's going on back there.
Yep.
Mhm.
So as we grow, we'll kind of add on and grow to it. But it was an impromptu meeting of the minds to come together and do the team thing.
Mhm.
So we've really been focusing on learning and then also prospecting.
So Mike Rolowitz was on, and I would suggest, if you don't know Mike, he expressed that he actually started a team, sort of failed at it, and then went back and regrouped it. One of the things he mentioned, and I was listening to see if you would say it, but he felt one of his challenges, the initial time he jumped in it a little too early. He's only been in it a few years in the business, a few years as well, comes from careers, is processes.
Right.
Now, I cannot define those processes. I'm not a real estate agent, but he felt we did not have our processes in place of how the team was going to function, I guess, and more or less is what he's talking about.
Yes, absolutely. So when we first came over, there was 4 of us, and then kind of was like, "Oh, let's start a team." And then, we had new agents wanting to interview for the team, and we interviewed a few people, a couple people fell out, and then it was like, okay, so the process. The
Mhm.
process was failing. We didn't know what was I didn't know how to manage new people coming on. I didn't know what my role was as a team leader and what I was supposed to do, where I was supposed to put my focus. And so a few of those agents kind of fell out. And I thought, at that time, it was good to just take a break and put a hard break on things. The 2 agents that I have with me, they're very dedicated agents, and they're really kind of with me and not under me.
Mhm.
So they're really kind of helping me grow this. And until we get to a well-oiled machine, as I say,
Yeah.
put our processes in place and understand everybody's roles and how we work those out. We're not adding any other people to
Yeah.
our team yet.
Now, again, I'll go back. I talk about Christina Welch all the time because I've known her a long time and watched her team evolve. There's a lot of failing forward.
Yeah.
As any self-employment person is, we all fail forward because we all have different traits and what we're good at, what we're not good at. What should I focus on? But one of the key things I think that makes her team hugely successful is over time. Over time, she's kept some very core people.
Mhm.
And so having a couple, like you said, a couple agents that know what they're doing, you understand you can rely on them, that they're taking, that load off when you need them to do so. They're helping you train a new agent if that's what you're doing, but having that core group that holds everything together. Yeah.
Yes, and at the beginning, it was kind of like, a free for all. And so now we've scaled back a little bit and we're kind of more focused on, oiling that machine. Now, I've worked with Christina Welch agents, and I must say, she's impressive.
Yes, she
Very.
did. She's, I moved in my neighborhood in 2009. I've known her since 2009 because she lives in my neighborhood. And I've watched her entire team grow from the start. I remember sitting in an office when she was with the other Keller Williams in town and sitting in her conference room over there. And I don't think there was 4 or 5 of them at the time. And there's a couple still there, and other people come and go. But now Now they're starting to stick.
Yeah.
There's more sticking. There's always people are always moving in and out in this business. Is the grass greener over there, or maybe they just get to a level they just want to do things on their own or whatever. But obviously you'll find out. Obviously, retention is one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah. I do. I look at all of those teams, and there's some very, very successful teams in Jacksonville. Very, very impressive agents, and I follow them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no doubt they're not that far away, and they have the collaboration attitude like you do. We're as a team. They would love for you to reach out and call them. Any agent listening, if you have questions about building a team or just questions about real estate, anyone that's been on or you're out there, don't feel bashful to call some of these top agents. They love to pour into you if you're willing to obviously, listen to what they have to say and hopefully implement what they're saying because it's worked for them and hopefully will work for you. From a time standpoint, we're running here. So do you have anything you want to say? Anything we didn't cover?
I don't know. I think we covered a lot. No, I love what I do. I feel very fortunate to have the support and the backing behind me. I love my brokerage now, Eagles World Realty. They are very, very supportive, and that I'm just really enjoying digging in and meeting all of these new, top producers, new agents, just the real estate world in general. I love it.
I've found when you really dig in, there are a lot of great people out there. I hear some horror stories, but for some reason I don't meet those people. It's just the circles I hang out in. I don't know. But I find, rising tide lifts all boats. And for the most part, a lot of the great agents that are successful, they have that attitude. So if you're talking and interacting with them, which I think you talked about a sphere of people around you, this is my last formal question. How important is it to have, whether it's your maintenance group or vendors on the speed dial, that's all part of your sphere, but that to be hanging around and interacting with people who are successful and where you want to be? How important is this to be around successful people?
Oh, it's very important. I think, the more you are around successful people, their successes rub off on you. It's really empowering and uplifting to be around people that are living and breathing your dream, and they're most of the time they're willing to help you get there.
Right.
So it's great. And I have realtors on my speed dial too that are not in my brokerage. I've reached out to different realtors, whether it may be, hey, I've got referral realtors in different parts of the state. And, at Eagles World, we're pretty diverse and multinational company. Right. So, if you have customers that speak a language that you don't speak, those realtors are there to help you as well. And
just about every language possible, I think, is in there.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
European, Middle Eastern, Asian. Yeah. It's wonderful, really.
Yeah. It is an interesting group for sure. All right. We're going to just finish up with my last question. I try to ask on every episode. Occasionally I forget, but is it more important who you know or what you know and why?
I think it is more important who you know, because if you don't know something, they probably know it. And if you know them, then you can probably get the answers.
That's my train of thought. I've had different answers that I agree with that one 100% for sure. I appreciate you coming on, Susan.
Thank you so much.
And everyone getting to know you a little bit. And if you're still listening here at the end of the show, if you could, my YouTube channel, you're going to see Susan up there here probably next week when the videos come back. Last week's videos are up. Episodes Tuesdays and Thursdays, particularly, is when the audio podcasts will go out from that standpoint. And if you could tune in, please. I'd love for everyone to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is really growing very quickly at a rapid pace. Every reel that goes out is getting thousands of views. It's kind of flattering from that standpoint, but it's not me, it's you guys. It's the real estate agents that are on there saying great things. But if you could subscribe, and definitely from the audio podcast, whether it's Apple or Spotify or Google, wherever you listen to your audio podcast, if you could leave a review for the show, I'd appreciate it. But all of Susan's information is going to be in the show notes. She is on social media. Facebook is where she's at. Susan Hanson, it's SON, and you can find her on there. And then, like I said, if you're an agent listening, reach out and say hi to her. And if you have any questions or want to share any experience or anything that may have been inspirational here on the show. So appreciate you again.
Thank you so much for having me.